Hey guys, if you've ever wanted to try G Fuel or if you want to restock your favorite flavors, now is the best time to do so, as my partners over at G Fuel have boosted my discount code IMMORTAL to get you 30% off your entire order until the morning of the 19th. Tubs, shaker cups, starter packs, you name it, you can get 30% off of it with code IMMORTAL. And now on to the regular video. We've had fast-paced, high-octane Call of Duty titles for the better part of a decade now, with games like Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, Advanced Warfare, so on and so forth. These were run-and-gun, frenzy-filled, and chaotic as can be titles, and they seriously changed the overall pace of play in Call of Duty a ton. But then we got Modern Warfare this year, which is claimed to be a journey back to the roots of Call of Duty, back to the good old days, the golden days some would call them, and in turn, this game plays quite differently. It offers a much slower pace of gameplay as it is a lot more tactical, but if you are like me, you like to run and gun, you like to move around and play aggressive and sort of be the root of chaos in a match, that to me is just exciting and entertaining. But being that chaos is just not as easy this year as it was in previous years. So today we're breaking down 9 tips to help you improve as an aggressive or rush heavy player. Before we jump into that though, if you are new here, we've been growing at a pretty insane rate recently, so if you do want to join the fam and stay up to date with the latest news and intel in the world of Call of Duty, feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. Also, if you enjoy the video, let me know by dropping a like rating on it, as it would be much appreciated. And now let's get into some tips for helping you improve as an aggressive player. So, for starters, one of the biggest things you can do to improve your gameplay when playing aggressive is to learn the rush routes for various maps. Each map in this game, as we know, is pretty complex and intricate, but there are still some basic things you can capitalize on in order to get that early advantage on the enemy team. If you are playing any modes or maps that have vehicles on them, like in Ground War, taking those vehicles to get onto the enemy's side of the map is going to be a huge help. Ideally, you'll want to end up in a power position, located above or in the sights of a flag or a major choke point. That way, all of those enemies running up to mid-map or wherever it is you're stationed at are going to be caught running into you, while you ideally have your sights aimed and ready to take out anyone and everyone flooding in. Now on other maps, take Gunrunner for instance, you can easily rush up the sides of the map to try and get an early flank, or on Ramaza, trying to get that height advantage early on is going to be a very big help too. Basically, just knowing what the power positions are on each map, and also how to get to them the fastest from each spawn, is going to set you up in a nice position to start dominating the match from pretty early on. Another huge thing you can do to improve as an aggressive player is to learn the recoil patterns of the weapons you're using the most. Everyone obviously has their favorite weapons to roll with, from the M4 to the Kilo to the MP5 to whatever else. But what you may not have known is that you can actually counter the recoil of any given gun in the game by simply learning its recoil pattern. Now, much like back in Black Ops 4, this game does have predictive recoil, meaning every time you shoot a weapon, it's going to have basically the same recoil pattern as before, maybe give or take a few bullets here and there. For instance, when you fire the Kilo, the recoil takes you up and to the left, so you can counter that by adjusting accordingly. Or on the MP7, the recoil is nearly completely vertical when holding down the trigger, so once again, by preparing for that and holding down ever so slightly on your thumbstick or by pulling back on your mouse, that's going to ensure the weapon's recoil is essentially minimized, and thus you'll probably be hitting more shots on target, getting kills quicker, and ultimately winning more and more gunfights at the end of the day. So learning those recoil patterns is going to give you a huge advantage in game compared to someone who might be reacting to recoil on the fly. Next up, tip number 3 for today is going to focus on how exactly you're peeking corners and just how to engage in gunfights around corners and edges in general. Now, if you didn't know, at least at the time of recording this video, some angles in this game are seriously broken when you peek just about anything. A corner, a barrier, a wall, or really anything of that nature. So sometimes your character could be showing before you're even able to see the enemy, and thus you'll experience a situation where it feels like you maybe got shot around the wall, or the enemies just seem to be able to see you before you see them, which unfortunately is really an all too real scenario. Exclusive Ace actually broke it down, and that's where you guys are seeing this image from here. So until this gets fixed, and honestly even after it does, this tip can still apply, but slow peeking edges and corners really is not always the best idea. Rather than slowly walking around a corner and just hoping the enemy isn't looking at you, using a few certain mechanics can actually give you quite the edge over your opponents. Get it? Because, you know, edges, it can give you an edge? Nope? Okay. Anyways, here you can do a few different things to actually help catch your enemies off guard. You can either sprint jump around a corner, that way you are physically around that corner faster both on your screen and the enemy's screen, allowing for that window of time where they might see you first to be narrowed down by a bit. Or you can also slide to get around corners as well, which I've actually noticed is a bit more effective, as sometimes sliding can really throw off an enemy's aim, especially if you say slide to the right around a corner and then immediately burst back to the left ever so slightly, causing the enemies to have to correct their aim, and more often than not allowing you enough time to get that cleanup kill. At the same time though, sliding and jumping around might feel very aggressive in comparison to the general population's playstyle, which well, let's be honest, is a bit more relaxed, I guess we could say, but it can still leave you semi-vulnerable, which is why tip number 4 today is all about pre-aiming frequently. Having your sights up first in a gunfight is going to be a huge factor in who lives and who dies. So when you are pushing into a room that could potentially have a few enemies posted up in it, or when you're getting ready to enter a major choke point on any given map, pre-aiming is going to give you a slight advantage in most scenarios. And it's also something you can even tie in with corner peeking, as you jump into the corner and begin to raise your sights, or you slide into a corner and do the same. So both of those tips coinciding with one another should help you win a few extra gunfights here and there. Next up, you're also going to want to focus on mobility. Obviously, if you are running and gunning and rushing around, playing as aggressive as you possibly can, you are going to want to be as agile and as fast as possible, both with your movement speed and also with your ADS speeds. So specifically here, you want to focus on attachments that help boost your mobility stat overall. This includes attachments like various barrels, for instance the FFS 11.5-inch commando barrel on the M4, certain stocks like the Forged Tac CQS, the TAC laser and the 5mW laser, and the stippled grip tape, to name just a few. Now these will all certainly have their cons as well, so just be mindful of those, but being able to raise your sights faster and also being able to increase your sprint to fire speed are both going to be massive helps when it comes to aggressive gameplay all across the board. Now chances are, if you are a rush heavy player, you try to go on high streaks and just constantly stay up in the enemy's faces. So another thing to keep in mind there when focusing on that run and gun playstyle is not running out of ammo. And here there are a few different things to help make sure you've got plenty of extra ammo saved up. You can of course run Scavenger in the perk 1 spot, as that allows you to resupply ammo from dead players. You can use the munitions box field upgrade, which gives you extra ammo and equipment once placed, or you can utilize the ammo supplies built into the various ground war maps if you're playing on one of those. So all of those offer a few ways to ensure that you're not deep into the enemy's spawn and all of a sudden running out of ammo right before you get that next kill streak. Tip number 7 today is going to be all about the stim. The stim equipment is found under the tactical option, and this actually allows you to manually heal instead of having to wait for automatic health regen to kick in. And that could honestly be the difference between life and death in quite a few different situations. If you are rushing around and you get shot at and you take some damage, you are immediately vulnerable to being pushed and taken out if you have to stop and wait for health regen to kick in. However, if you do have stim active, you can pop it after getting shot and quickly heal up back to full health and continue on your tear without ever thinking twice. So it is definitely a vital piece of equipment for aggressive players. Now let's also talk about staying stealthy, because as a player who is likely going to be in the enemy spawn or almost always in close proximity to the enemy team, the last thing you want is for them to know where you're coming from. And that is why Cold-Blooded, Ghost, and Dead Silence can all be utilized extremely well under a rushing playstyle. Cold-Blooded is going to allow you to stay shrouded from the enemy AI targeting systems, so streaks aren't going to be a huge nuisance to you. Ghost will keep you off the minimap, so that's another huge benefit. And of course, Dead Silence also lowers your footstep audio, allowing you to sneak up behind the enemies without being picked up from various audio cues as you run through a building or across a street, let's say. That said though, I will say out of all of those, Cold-Blooded is really the least necessary for that stealth factor, as it is specifically aimed at avoiding enemy streaks, which is why tip number 9 for today is all about double time. Double time ends up doubling the duration of the tactical sprint, and it increases your crouch movement speed by 30%. So when it comes to physically running around faster and really embracing that rushing playstyle, double time will allow you to do it the best. But unless you are running Specialist, you do have to choose between that, Scavenger, or Cold-Blooded, but with the right setup it is definitely doable. Anyways, with all of that being said, those are 9 tips and tricks to improve as a run and gun type of player here in Modern Warfare, and that is effectively going to wrap things up for today. If you guys found the video helpful or if you just simply enjoyed it, let me know by dropping a like rating on it, as it would be much appreciated. And of course, if you are new here and you want to stay up to date with everything going on in the world of Call of Duty, including all the latest news and intel, updates and leaks, and pretty much everything else in between, feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. That way you'll always know when I post a new video. As I said earlier, my G Fuel discount code IMMORTAL is currently boosted to a 30% discount. So if you do want to take advantage of those increased savings, that boost is active until Wednesday morning. Once again, thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.